So are we almost ready?
Yes, we're live.
Oh, we're live. Okay. Oh, well, welcome everybody to our this week's segment of Stopping the Violence in America. We've gone through several weeks and it's been a very successful, enlightening webinars on various persons from law enforcement, pastors, religious faith leaders, activists, social workers that have come on and share their hopes and strengths of how they have worked toward stopping the violence in America, from our schools to our streets and various other places. We've learned a lot and we're continuing to learn. But one of the major components and reason why we're having this is that we can create a conglomeration of best practices to come together and build a national network whereby we can begin to correlate and work with one another. Today, I want to, if you hear me, I'm a little stuffed. I've just come back to America from a very long trip abroad. And my body is telling me that those kind of trips are not easy anymore, but they are imperative that I went. But today I have a very special guest to come. Many weeks ago, I have met him through Leslie Rigney in Las Vegas. We had a great lunch together, and we hit it off very powerfully. I was so impressed with his heart. I was impressed with his vision. I was impressed with his determination to be a catalyst for change when it comes to violence, when it comes to our young people, understanding that, there are viable reasons why they have gone through such traumas in their lives and have perpetuated them to become people who are committing certain violent crimes and violent acts. Our speaker is going to be Pastor Troy Martinez, is the chair of Rebuilding Every City Around Peace, the RECAP initiative with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, founding member of the City of Las Vegas Mayor's Faith Initiative, a recipient of the 2017 U.S. Conference of Mayors, Cities Livability Award, producer of Believe Again Las Vegas, anyway, I don't know, I've just lost the documentary, a public safety initiative after 1st of August mass shooting, executive director of Nevada Sex Trafficking Awareness Campaign, and producer of an Emmy-nominated Traffic Get No More documentary, chair of the Las Vegas Crystal Darkness Anti-Drug Campaign, founder of the 10,000 Kids nonprofit organization, member of the Las Vegas Sheriff Metropolitan Multicultural Advisory Committee, Governor's Point of Life recipient, Presidential Prayer Team, and pastor of East Vegas Christian Center. Wow, we are very impressed what you have done that also is indicative of who you are in the service of your community. Welcome, Pastor Troy Martinez. It's good to see you, and finally we got you.
Thank you, Zachary, and thank you, Leslie, for making this happen, and longtime resident and here in Las Vegas, and we're so delighted to be able to, like you said, learn from one another, because there is a true need in this type of work that we do.
Mm, yeah. Welcome. It's wonderful to have you. Yeah.
So tell me, Zachary,
Yeah,
what
please. So,
you would
so,
like to start.
yeah, Troy. So please just share us actually the theme of what you have shared with us, and we talked about previous is that I thought was another initiative. It's called Dads in School, and I think that's a very, very important mission, and it is important for our young people to have that male figure in their lives, helping them to, change those behaviors and monitor those behaviors. Could you tell us a little bit more about that particular initiative?
Absolutely. And thanks for that wonderful introduction and all those things that you heard regarding the introduction are things that led up to us, meaning myself and our nonprofit, to be called in by the Clark County School District, which is the 5th largest in the nation, with 300,000 plus students and 40,000 staff. And right after COVID, there was a huge spike in the Las Vegas school district of violence. And we're talking about assaults on teachers, assaults on staff, assaults on students. We were having parents come onto campus and assault both staff and other students. And it escalated to gunfire, where we had a student killed on campus by gunfire. At one particular high school, there was a gun battle where 2 students on campus with firearms were having a shootout with a carload of other students from a different area that had several weapons, and over 140 rounds were exchanged. This is during a fire drill where students were streaming out of the school into the street, and there's this big gun battle. 5 students were injured, a couple of those critically, thank God none of them died. But what happened in our city was very similar to what happened across the nation, where during COVID, kids were locked in the homes. There was a lot of dysfunction in families. We know domestic violence went up, child abuse went up, all kinds of neglect issues, addictions went up, and just some very difficult circumstances that, whether you're a student or not, impacted our lives. And then these students went back to school with very little confidence on what the rules were. Some wore masks, some did not. They had seen rioting and demonstrations. Some of those were peaceful, some of them were not. During the George Floyd tragedy, where a young man was killed by a police officer after 9 minutes kneeling on his neck. And so people were angry. These students saw these things, and they just basically didn't have the coping skills to deal with them in a peaceful way or dialogue. So the district, because we had a long history working with the district on reducing drugs being brought into the schools, doing the documentary you mentioned on sex trafficking. In 2014, our city, actually our state, for the first time in the history of Nevada, passed a law to make sex trafficking a crime. Prior to that, a girl could be sold, and the maximum penalty was pandering of about $150 fine. So the risk to reward was incredible. You know, someone bring a girl here and make thousands of dollars a night off her. If they were caught, it's $150 fine. Well, this new law changed that, but we needed to do a statewide awareness campaign, including in the schools. So we made a documentary that went on every channel uninterrupted for 30 minutes, Simultaneously, it's called a roadblock, and we were able to accomplish that with very little money. Most of it was donated, millions of dollars worth of airtime from all of the major networks: CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, Telemundo, PBS. Everyone participated both in English and Spanish. So because of these type of favor and success that the school district was used to having when they partnered with us and our nonprofit, they said, why do we have all this violence? Well, one of the big indicators was in October 1, 2017, there was a mass shooting, the largest mass shooting since the Civil War, and it still is, where 58 people were murdered. One of those was a police officer. And also about 800 were injured. About 400, I think, were shrapnel from the gunfire, and others were trampled or broken bones from fleeing. And so it was a terrible historic event and tragedy in our nation. But what we did after that was we pulled together experts from all over the country. They had been at 9/11, they had been at Sandy Hook, they had been at hurricanes, tornadoes, the fires in California, the Camp Fire, where an entire community was burned to the ground and people lost lives. So we brought all these experts in, and they helped us produce a documentary to prepare our city, our parents, our students, what it would look like living in the aftermath of a mass shooting. And one of the things they predicted was that we would see a spike in violence amongst the youth, especially at school. So this was, remember, 2017. We did the documentary in 2018. And then, soon after COVID hit, and then the kids had never had a chance to process in a correct way the mass shooting and the trauma that comes with that, especially the younger students. And one of the things we learned was that a young mind, when they see these news stations looping over and over and over the graphics of the mass shooting, which happens typically after any one of these tragedies, their mind thinks that it's happening again, even though it's footage from a day ago or a week ago or a month ago. Their brain doesn't know how to receive that messaging, and they feel like it's traumatizing or triggering them all over again. So the reason I mention that is many of the schools had problems across the nation after returning from COVID, but ours had a much more difficult time. And part of that, we believe, was because of the aftermath of 2017, a mass shooting here in Las Vegas. Excuse me. So when these difficult times came, we met with the school district. We had been inspired by some other programs across the country, and we set our heart to find a way to put direct services into the schools. One of those direct services is men, and it can be a woman, it can be a mother or anyone else who signs up. They have to take a FBI background check, have to take some training. They have to be paired up with a principal of a school. Excuse me, guys, I have a little bit of a catch in my throat there. And once their FBI background check, their training, they have to take some other things that the district would require from any teacher or volunteer that would go on campus. They're given a referee style jersey that looks like what you would see on an NFL football field of the referee. And that's to give them high visibility, that students can see them from a distance, the teachers, and also to psychologically give them a referee's there to be neutral. They're not there to be in the game. They're not, we're not police. We're not staff. We're neutral. We're there to make sure everything is fair. Everything is healthy, that it's done right. It's done to the rules. And so that's the, kind of image that we want. We're not there to intimidate the students. We're there to show them compassion and to be a presence. We call this prevention through presence. And Zachary, you just mentioned sometimes the absence of a father. And we, there's data that can support this, but in simple layman terms, when there's a grown man there in a home, the children cannot get away with as much when it's just a single mom trying to pull together 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, and they're not listening. When the dad shows up, it's a whole different story, and the together they can do much more. So one of the things that Dads in School does is we have an awareness campaign where we go out into the community and we go on television, radio, newspaper, and announce that this is an opportunity for men in their own neighborhood to be able to serve at a school near them. And additionally, if there's any mothers that want to be involved in Dads in Schools, and they go to the website, they sign up and go through the process I just described. We also go to churches, nonprofits, community centers, and do a physical presentation where we're there and sign people up. So that just in the first year, we were able to sign up thousands of men and some women to at least join the program. We made it available to the school district principals. There's 360 campuses, so 360 schools, and 53 of those schools signed up immediately. And we were able to deploy volunteers to those schools. We currently have about 100 badge volunteers that are there every day, another 250 plus that are badged and being deployed. And then we have, I think, 13 or 1,400 that are on in the process. They've signed up on the website, but they still have to get a background check and go through the process. So one of the exciting things to report is now that we're approaching the end of the year, we did some school surveys where we sent the principal a survey and we asked them if attendance went up or down or stayed the same. And one of the things we saw after COVID and the violence started to break out, kids just stayed home. They missed school, so they weren't getting their education. They were afraid, and their parents were afraid and would not send them. And they were already used to kind of staying home because of COVID. So it wasn't a huge, transition just to say, I'm going to continue to stay home. So one of our goals, or one of our outcomes, measurable outcomes, was if attendance would go up. The other thing we were looking to accomplish was violent incidents to reduce, and peaceful climate, or basically saying that the children felt safe to learn, would go up. So I'm pleased to report that the surveys that have come in and are still coming in are showing that attendance has went up across the board. So that's a good indicator. Additionally, we saw that violent incidents reduced in many of the schools. There was actually one school, it's a middle school, where last year, before Dads in Schools, there was fights almost weekly, sometimes daily, in the cafeteria area. These middle schools have like 2,000 students. A high school here will have 4,000 students, and you mix thousands of students in the cafeteria, it's easy for a fight to break out. This particular school has had zero fights in the cafeteria all year, and we're praying that by the end of the year that will continue to maintain, and we'll be able to have that one school that has had 0 fights in the cafeteria for an entire year, because the dads and schools volunteers are there walking around, talking to students and making them feel safer, and also sending a message that they're not going to allow violence to take place while they're there. So that was another indicator. Violent incidents. So many of the schools reported violent incidents went down, and a few of the schools reported that violent incidents stayed the same, which is still good news. It means that it did not get worse. And so we're very excited to report that. But across the board, the climate, what they call the student climate, which basically is a term for, do you feel safe? Across the board, it increased. And why that's important is there's studies that prove a student cannot learn if they're at school and they're afraid. As a matter of fact, they cannot learn if they're hungry at school. That's why the student breakfasts were included years ago. The student lunches are free, because students cannot learn if they're hungry, and they cannot learn if they're afraid. We also noticed that many of the students that normally are constantly in fear for whatever reason, maybe they're bullied, maybe they have some insecurities, that those students tend to sit or gravitate near where our men volunteers are. So they have now somewhere to go in their school if they start to feel unsafe. They just see that uniform, they see that referee jersey, and they feel afraid or insecure. They just start heading that way, and sometimes they never even talk to the volunteer. They just are within 10 or 15 feet, and they feel safer. If someone was bullying them, they'll go the other way because there's the big dad with his uniform on. And we're learning that it's a safe space for them. We also are hearing from the teachers. It's hard to even say this, but last year, a teacher here in Las Vegas was strangled almost to death. It was attempted murder by a 16-year-old student. She was raped, she was beat, she was strangled to death, and the student when she was left unconscious on the floor, he put a file cabinet over her to hide her body, and she came to, and he went back to finish strangling her, and she had to play dead to survive. And this young woman that had this happen to her, it sent fear, shockwaves across to every teacher, especially the female teachers, especially the younger ones, that they see themselves in that reflection of that teacher. And also you got to think about this, the spouses of these teachers, the spouses of these teachers that are saying, I'm not sending you back to school, you're going to quit. And there was a lot of teachers that quit or did not sign back up for further service. And we were hemorrhaging good teachers because of this one incident and many other incidents, although they were not that severe. But it shocked our community. And I can tell you that the teachers come up to our volunteers on a daily basis and thank them. I've had volunteers say, I feel embarrassed because I get thanked 20 times a day by these teachers, and we're just out here volunteering. They don't feel like they're doing a whole lot because they're right in the middle of it. But to those teachers, to see a physical person, a male that's wearing the uniform, standing there and going up and down, and if they were in trouble, they could yell out, and there's somebody to respond instantly. Even though we have the school police, they still have to be called, dispatched, get to the location, and respond in whatever manner to whatever incident. These men are just there, prevention through presence. And so we're very excited, we're very pleased. We're looking to get more. I'm getting calls from all over the nation of people that want to start one in their school. Some are just parents, some are principals, some are from their districts, And they're saying, how can we use this model in our own community because we have similar issues? So Zachary, I agree with you. We have to, just humbly serve one another, learn from each other. And some of the successes that we've had here, I really do credit to the grace of God. We had no proof initially that it would work, that it would be successful. It was a step of faith. We used common sense, we prayed, and we just did what we had to work with. We used what we had to work with and stepped in. And I could tell you, our school district is resilient. Our school district is 80% minority. 50% is Latino, a large African American, a large Asian Pacific Islanders, Filipinos, a lot of mixed race, a lot of young white kids. And normally they all get along. You don't have these violence issues. And this was a time in the history of our city where they needed help. They didn't even know it, but they needed help. And that was the opportunity we saw, and we stepped in to help serve these kids and their families, because now their parents feel safer knowing there's less violence in our schools. And I'll stop there for now, Zachary, unless you have something you'd like me to add.
Name is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Zachary. So the A is Zachary. But I want to thank you for that profound and heartfelt, sharing of your strengths and the best practices that has proven. And you said that there was no litmus test or a research done that has proven yet, but you have now proven. And the first thing that came in my mind, because you and I both are men of God, so we have no quorums about adding God into everything. And the first thing that came into my mind when you were talking about these dads in school and utilizing them as prevention through presence, first thing that came in my mind was that God's principles of creation are absolute. The male plays a very central role, even with his presence, in curtailing and reducing things just by being there. And I don't know, it was you and me, we had our lunch, or one of our speakers came on and they shared about the elephant story, that somehow these reserve parks had taken away the male bulls for something else, and they left these kind of like teenage elephants to roam around, and they start ravishing and destroying the villages nearby. So they realized what's going on. So what they did, it was uncommon for elephants to do that, but they were like teenage elephants. So what they did, let's bring back the bulls, the father male elephants. And once they brought the male elephants back, all of that stopped. It ceased right there. So again, that goes back to the power of the fathers, the power of a male being in presence. So I really want to thank you for that, and thank you for the best practices that now you have. You have some results that can back up your data, and some data to back up your results, put it that way. So I really want to thank you for that. We want to open up for anyone else to share something or ask any questions to you that you can answer. For our audience, as you know, we're also live, but we have people on that would like to share something. Anyone like to make some remarks or to share?
I will. This is Rosalie with Regenerative. And sometimes when I hear all of the negative things that happen with maybe outside of the realm that I'm actually in and understand. One thing to understand, even in violence, that we can be empowered without reacting when we realize that there's far worse things than death and disease. When we're constantly in fear, I hope to speak and I ask the Holy Spirit to help convey what I'm trying to convey without offending. And focusing on that, that even if you're in a situation that puts you in harm's way, that, just stepping back and being observing that emotion come up out of fear and survival. And I've had some situations, not nearly like what the gentleman was talking about, being, a filing cabinet put over the top of you or something, but I've had situations, and not being disempowered in fear, but being empowered, knowing that we're creators and that we have the ability to observe a situation and disarm it by even saying to the Holy Spirit to help protect us and guide us and how to move forward in this difficult situation. And sometimes that is enough to help people become less traumatized and or more empowered to change the situation. And if I, instead of it, let me just say, like, for instance, when I was if I'm watching a movie and I just am traumatized by all of what is happening inside of the movie, I step back as the observer because I'm just watching and observing the movie. It actually helps me to be more aware of that there's something at the end of the story that I just don't know, and to wait for it. And I would love to see that a lot of this stuff has transformational thinking, foundational principles that helps people feel more empowered during stressful times, and staying more focused on creating something they want, and not focusing on being afraid and running to people because they're afraid. That's all I wanted to say. I think there's some things I don't quite understand, and I hope to help in any way I can. And I was just hoping that maybe we could also bring some more transformational thinking to these people that have been so traumatized, that they can see they're empowered through that trauma. They can be empowered through it. Anyway, thank you. And I appreciate all your help and what you're doing.
So much. Thank you. Anyone else like to share?
Yes, I'd like to share, just making some remarks. Welcome home, Reverend Oliver.
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, you talked about children not being able to learn if they're not in a safe place, or even if they're hungry. And those are the basics. But when we talk about fear, Fraud mentioned you had a 90-second fight or flight instinct that arouses you, when you're in a situation. When people are paralyzed by fear, it's not just a one-time occurrence. It's just like you said, they keep reliving it and keep reliving it and keep reliving it, and not having the opportunity to process. And I clearly heard you go back to 2017, not having the opportunity to really process that and get the counseling or the opportunity to talk to someone to really be able to express what they felt at that particular time, and to keep reliving it. I think we're living in a day and time of society where things are so off balance, with the males, the fathers being outside of the household, that it's caused this brokenness. So for you to be able to get these families and rally in the community and have these dads come into the school systems, I think that is amazing. I think that's what it takes. The community, the school, the church, politics, law enforcement, the camaraderie coming together to show the support to the children, that they know that they have support. Even when kids are being bullied, to be able to go to school and talk to one of these dads that's there and tell them their situation, or the dad being keened in his observation to know that there's something different about this child. It's a phenomenal feat to be able to offer these children a safe place. So for that, I commend you and your services.
Thank you. And anyone else like to share?
Daryl has his
Oh,
hand up.
Daryl, Reverend Clark, the Reverend Franklin, I tell you, I'm not fully here yet. Give me a week.
No problem, Reverend Oliver. Hey, we love you. No problem. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate everybody being here. Mr. Martinez, thank you so much, for that wonderful testimony. And the thing that really shoots out to me is all glory to God. You have glorified God. You have your life and what you did. You have executed and you have demonstrated the power of the living God. You came out of the box and said you all came together. You didn't know what the situation was going to be. You didn't know what to do, but you came together in prayer. And that just shows that in our life, in our world today, we are bombarded tremendously with negative news. And from our point of view, from man's point of view, it's overwhelming. We can get depressed, we can get frustrated, but then at the same time, when we understand that, yes, that is beyond our limitations, that is beyond our expertise, but God has the solution. And when you prayed and when you all came together, he showed up. And, and it reminds me of Jack Brewer. I was watching Laura Ingraham, a repeat of Laura Ingram's show yesterday. And Jack Brewer was a former professional football player, and he created an organization about the importance of dads being proactively involved in the community to help mentor young men, as well as young women, but mostly being there and accepting the role, the spiritual role of the father figure, and how important that is in a society, in the community. And thank you so much for what you're doing. And it's right there. This nation was conceived by God. And with all this stuff that's going on, it gives testimony how it is so important that as a nation, as a community, we get back to the foundation that allowed this country to stand. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Troy. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Someone put in the chat a question.
Yes.
Do you have any case where the volunteers were harassed or violated? So the short answer is no, we did not. I think initially the students were curious, maybe skeptical, like, why is this man here with a uniform, or these couple of men here with these uniforms? And I think some of them are not used to having a male figure in their presence. Most of the teachers are female. The male teachers and the male staff are usually busy doing something else, and they just look at them as part of the furniture. They're supposed to be there. But these men were out of the blue just there. And so initially it was curious. And then we noticed that they would give high fives or fist bumps or engage the kids in small talk. Occasionally, they would stand in the middle when there might be a fight or they start to argue. The male volunteer would come and stand in the middle and watch people dissipate. So it wasn't long after where they recognized what they were there for. And we assume from their interactions that they felt good about those men being there. And as I go to different schools and see the volunteers in action, these kids love those volunteers. They know their name. They shout out to them. One of the things in some of the middle schools, if you need to be released to go out of the cafeteria or to the restroom, you have to ask permission in some instances, and they will signal the volunteer to get permission first before they ask the hall monitor or the cafeteria folks, because they're actually more comfortable interacting with the volunteer. We didn't have to force that. Again, the teachers profusely thank and encourage, say things to, positive things to the volunteers. So we have not, there was only one incident that I can think of where one of the male volunteers had to put himself in the middle without touching or putting hands on a student. There was two students getting into a physical altercation and one of the students fell and their head hit the floor. So at that point, he just stepped in and his body blocked and stopped the altercation. And in that instance, there was a lot of bumping around from the crowd and nothing happened to the volunteer. But that was the most serious incident compared to the previous year when things were out of control, where they would just strike. If the staff approached a fight or an altercation, that students would turn and violently attack whatever staff tried to intervene. And that has not happened to our volunteers at all. And I think, there's that component of love and compassion that they recognize. I think they're hungry for it, and they're not going to mess it up. These kids are smart and sophisticated and really intelligent, wonderful children. And I think they recognize that love and compassion above all else.
Roy, just before you come on, Catherine, I would just like to say in response to Reverend, the other speakers, and I just keep wanting to reiterate this: God's natural laws and actions, laws and relationships are in action when the male figure came in. And I just was struck by, I have done some working with guys who are coming out of the prison system in the past. And when they get comfortable with you, and I'm talking about tough guys, they have some real tough situations and tough attitudes and have done some tough things. And so you look at them externally, you might even fear them. But if they get comfortable with you, and I've had a couple get comfortable with me, and you know what they usually say? You know why I feel? Why I'm hurting is because I always wanted my dad in my life. I didn't know my dad. They'll whisper almost that, So that also goes to the power of the dad that we're seeing being manifested in this extraordinary results that you have just shared with us. Welcome, Catherine.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm so sorry I was late. And Reverend Martinez, it's good seeing you again. I just wanted to announce that I was appointed to a National Commission on Nonviolence out of the American Clergy Leadership. So Troy, you're being voluntold to serve on that commission. All right, gotcha. A couple of things. I know we're talking about violence in the schools, and I wasn't sure how many schools you were impacting, but I know Las Vegas, we have to be a model. We're a tourism community, so we can't have any incidents that would detract from tourists. So our police department used to be one of the most challenged police departments in the nation until we brought in the Justice Department and they were scrutinized and they had to change their way of doing business. So I'm wondering if the program, I think we worked together on My Brother's Keepers. You were on the My Brother's Keepers project, right? So because this is happening nationwide, I'm wondering if there's any nationwide initiatives that are going on. And my final question to you is, are you familiar with HR 1111?
Thank you for that. I'm not familiar with HR 111. As far as nationwide, the U.S. Congressman Horsford of Nevada recently invited dads in schools to the White House to see President Biden sign the Safer Communities, the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which releases funding for schools and communities to reduce violence, and they, which is historic. They actually include faith-based organizations are eligible, which is unique. Many times faith-based are excluded, and in this case, they're not. So this, again, it's the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. That funding just got signed. I think we were there in August at the White House. I was asked to bring a student from our Clark County district with me, and that money is now flowing through a variety of conduits, the Department of Justice, the Department of Ed, and several others, Health and Human Services Department, but it's coming down to the states. So every state and municipality can begin to apply for that federal funding and stand up these type of programs. They can actually use Vegas as a reference now that we have data and data points to say it is best practices. And again, being the 5th largest district in the nation carries a lot of weight. Catherine, what city are you in now?
I'm still in Las Vegas.
Okay, so the funding here, we're still waiting for, but I'll take you up on those offers, and anybody else listening, Bipartisan Safer Community Act, Google it, and it applies to your community. And I would encourage, I think Reverend Oliver is right on. If we can do something to share collectively, people can be applying for that money. If we don't apply, it goes away. So that would be a tragedy.
And I just have, and thank you for that, Reverend. I have one other comment that was sent to me by Dr. Rouse. He wanted to know if we knew about a program called Awaken the Sleeping Giant. This says, Awaken the Sleeping Giant stirs the men to be central to God and their families and communities. And he's looking for us to put together programs. He wants us to look at the program called Awakening the Sleeping Giant. Are you familiar with that at all?
I'm not. What city is he based out of?
I'm not sure. I think this is coming out of Texas with Dr. John Jackson's comments.
I am not. And again, going back to Reverend Oliver helping us put this together, we need to learn from each other.
Okay.
There's probably things he's doing that I should be doing and vice versa. And we really have to start networking better.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everyone. And it's true. That's what we would like to do, is to bring, because we've had some incredible people on, such as yourself. And if we correlate all of them together, I think we can make a national impact collectively with what Catherine is doing and her new mission, but what this webinar has been attempting to do. Because through the webinar, we were able to bring people from all around the nation, and you can hear, like yourself, how, God is working through you, that violence, as the lady says, we can't live in the realm of fear, but we have to live in the realm of hope, because God wins. That's why I keep reiterating the point of the males. And I was saying also, even in the streets, sometimes we males have to get out there in the street and stand there and be the fathers out there for them, even if it takes us to get knocked down, but we still need to stand up. We have become afraid of our own sons, and we have to stand there and say, we're not afraid of you. You're our son, you're our daughter, you know, and that I think we can see a paradigm shift because, as you said, with those young people there, they are feeling comfortable with them. You know, they're feeling that their presence is there not to intimidate them, but also just that presence is a presence of safety, a presence of maybe even feeling love, you know, that they did not get from their home environment, but they just see it within a construct of their environment in their school by them walking back and forth. And it's powerful. It is a testimony. I don't care what anybody says. It's a testimony because God designed it that way, you see? So I'm really thankful for that. Anyone else would like to share? We have one of our wonderful sisters on. I see her. Did she disappear on me? Mrs. Reverend Juanita Pierre-Louis. I'd like to hear from you.
Okay, hello, everyone.
Hey, Reverend Juanita.
Yes, we're coming from the Big Apple here. A little cool here, but we're here. Thank you so much, Dr. Martinez, and welcome back, Reverend Oliver. Welcome back. But Reverend Martinez, yes. Beg your pardon?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I've worked in East Harlem quite a bit. In fact, I had worked with a program over there and a youth program. And so when I was working over there, one of the main things that we were doing was trying to help the young people understand that the game wasn't their father, their parents, that they didn't have to adhere to what the game said or whatever. But we worked with them. We had young men to come in from West Harlem and everything, and even from downtown. They came from downtown New York, and it became a very good program. Even the Latin Lords, even they wanted to help, but I think it was something behind it. We didn't let it in too much, but you know, the Latin Lords were real strong then. So they even offered their help. They helped us to bring food in for the kids. They found clothes, you know, it was just the whole neighborhood started working together. And one thing I can say is that the Spanish mothers, they did not let us go hungry. They were, if you do something for their children, boom, 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 you got everything. They will bring everything. So I think all neighborhoods can work like that. I've worked in West Harlem too. We had a great time with Congressman Rangel. He had a very good program. And so I've worked with youth programs about 20 years now. But I've seen the change. I haven't seen that much change in the way some of the people are working. I thank you for the job you are doing there in Las Vegas, right? You're in Las Vegas. I thank you for the work you're doing. But I do hope that maybe even some of your pattern or I can invite you here to New York to speak or to help to bring some of your program here too. We got a lot of them, but a lot of them are not working because our brothers are not coming in. So thank you so much for that. And it takes a man and a woman, it takes a father and a mother to raise a village. And I'm going to be working with the women, the Mothers Against Violence. And I'm hoping that we also can have Fathers Against Violence to work with us. Thank you so much. And thank you, Reverend.
Thank you so much, Reverend Juanita Pierre-Louis, for that. And yeah, I know that you have worked many years in the community. And so we look forward to working with you as well, and especially in New York. And we have Reverend Rosario, they're there as well. So yeah. I think we can put a package together a very wonderful package. We're coming to the close of our meeting. I see, thank you, Reverend Martinez. You have demonstrated Chronicles 7:14, if my people are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face. Peace is needed. Education in the word, but cannot exist without peace in the family. The volunteers are providing the extended family and helping the village to raise the children. Amen. Thank you, Barbara Mosley. Barbara Mosley Marks is also, she has a history of going into the school systems and teaching character education, which is another component that we can use to help, recalibrate the thinking in the hearts of our young people out there that are coming from dysfunctional situations that perpetuates sometimes violent behaviors. But as we are in closing, Reverend Martinez, I would like to know if you would like for you to say some closing remarks as we close.
Absolutely. I'm greatly encouraged by everyone's comments and your presence, just being here. This type of work sometimes can be thankless. Sometimes you're very alone, but seeing my brothers and sisters all across the nation doing similar work encourages me. It fills my tank back up, and I'm so excited. And years ago, Miss Leslie Wrigley invited me and my wife to Los Angeles, one of the big events, and with the Universal Peace Federation, and it was so impactful. Every flavor, every color, every background, every religion, oh my God. And I think as human beings, gotta start looking at each other just like that, brothers and sisters. And I just want to say I love you guys all, and thank you for encouraging me. Even though I presented, I feel like I'm the one that got recharged. Thank you.
Amen.
So much, and we have been working to get him for a long while. And finally, because we had a great lunch in Las Vegas, on the Strip, by the way.
Right.
And I want to thank you again for coming on. So we look forward to working even closer with you. And as time comes, we will congeal with one another. And so we can collaborate the best practices. I'm looking to put work in Catania I'm telling you, I've been traveling in conjunction with Reed, and he's come on, and his fiance just spoke, Catherine and Reverend Juanita, and my ace, who I want to thank, Dr. Madeline Alexander, who while I was traveling, she took over the hosting and the moderating for me, and she's always a stalwart commentator to come on, and I really lean on her and want to thank her. But I want to thank you again, as I said, that we can have a conference to bring these guys together, bring us together. And so your program can be implemented there, his programs, so all our programs, that we can have a national impact. I always say Satan is a liar, he's a thief, he's a master intimidator, and his job is to make you think that nothing can never change. That's his job. But God's job and our job is to say, no, it shall and will change, because you are not the master. The master is ultimately God and those who work with God, and God can work through. So we thank you, Reverend Martinez, how God has been working through you in Las Vegas. God bless you. I want to thank everyone for coming on, and we look forward to next week, seeing you next week. And we love you. God bless you. And again, Reverend Martinez, we will talk soon. God bless everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you, Reverend Oliver.
very
Yeah.
nice.
Hello.
Very
Thank you,
nice.
Reverend Oliver. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yes.
Hey, Reverend
Okay.
Juanita, good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Good to see you,
Yeah.
Brother John.
Jim. God bless everyone.
Reverend Reed.
All right. Good to see
Good.
you.
Good to
Captain
see you,
Duncan,
Juanita.
good to see you.
Very nice.
Congratulations.
Wayne
Welcome
Hagan.
back.
Hey, Dr. Alexander,
Hey,
always a pleasure to see
Hey,
you.
Daryl Franklin.
We'll see you
Oh,
again next
Frank.
week.
Frank.
Hey,
Reverend Franklin.
the
Frank, gotta do it.
fabulous.
We are
All
doing
right.
it. We are doing
Leslie
it.
Rigney, hold me back.
So Leslie, we finally got him, huh, Leslie?
Yeah, boy, that's beautiful. Really
To
beautiful.
see you, Catherine.
Yeah, I hope we can really work closely with him because he's really got
Yes.
something. He's
Mhm.
got, feet on the ground there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, everyone. God
All
bless
right.
you.
God bless.
you.
Okay.
Call me, Leslie.
Thanks, Catherine.
Take care.
God
Yeah.
bless you.
Okay.
Take
All
care.
right.
Thank you,
Right,
EJ.
Honey Tiger Reed.
Juanita.
Thank you for your comments. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
All right.
See you
God
next
bless.
Stay
week.
marvelous. Stay heavenly, everybody.
Amen.
All right. Thank you, Daryl.
Okay.
We're looking forward to seeing you back here, David. Can see your picture, but I guess you're there.
I'm here with my grands. They are, we were just coming back from fishing.
Oh,
Very cool. Very
very
cool.
good. Very good.